Most people lose money before the negotiation even starts. Not because the dealer is smarter, not because the seller is a scammer, because buyers walk in emotionally attached, and emotionally attached people overpay. That's why some people save $3,000 on the exact same car while somebody else pays full asking price for it 1 hour later. I'm a mechanic and this is Car Debrief. In this video I'm going to show you how people accidentally destroy their negotiation power, how sellers manipulate buyers without them knowing, and exactly how you can save thousands if you know how to use the right procedures properly. Because most used cars are not priced based on value, they are priced based on emotion. The first mistake buyers make is showing too much excitement way too early. The second you say, I love this car, this is exactly what I've been looking for, I need this car, you lose leverage. Because now the seller knows you are emotionally invested. And emotionally invested buyers become flexible with money. Watch what usually happens. The seller lists a car for $18,000. The buyer arrives excited, starts complimenting it, talks about taking it on road trips, mention how long they've been searching. The seller immediately relaxes because now they know this isn't a negotiation anymore. It's a waiting game. Most buyers negotiate with words. Experienced sellers negotiate with silence. One of the biggest mistakes buyers make is negotiating before they even inspect the car properly. This is where buyers accidentally help the seller defend the price, because you immediately start offering lower numbers without evidence. The seller then sees you as difficult, but if you inspect the car calmly first, now every issue becomes leverage. Tires nearly worn out? That's leverage. Brake vibration? That's leverage. Oil leaks? Leverage. Cheap mismatched tires? Sign of poor ownership history. Delayed servicing? Leverage. Most buyers see problems as reasons to walk away. Good negotiators see problems as price reductions. And sellers know this. That's why many sellers desperately try to stop buyers from inspecting the car too carefully. You'll hear things like, someone else is coming to see it soon. They are reliable cars anyway. It only needs a few minor things. That is normal for this model. What they're really trying to do is stop you thinking logically, because urgency kills negotiation. One of the strongest negotiation tools isn't confidence, it's discomfort. Most sellers hate silence. Watch what happens when buyers talk too much. They'll inspect the car, find problems, then immediately soften the blow. Yeah, it's not too bad though. Oh, easy fix. I still really like it. You're literally undoing your own leverage. Instead, do this. Inspect the issue, pause, look at it quietly, and then silence. That silence creates pressure. Now the seller starts talking. And the more sellers talk, the more information they accidentally reveal. You'll suddenly hear things like, yeah, I was going to fix that. The last owner mentioned that. It's been sitting for a while. I've already dropped the price. Now you are learning motivation. The motivation for selling, and motivation is where discounts come from. The biggest discounts usually happen when the seller is emotionally tired, not when the car is bad. There's a huge difference. A desperate seller is far more valuable than a cheap car. This is why experienced buyers ask questions that sound casual but are actually strategic. How long have you owned it? How long has it been for sale? What made you decide to sell it? How many people have looked at it? You're not making conversation, you are measuring pressure, because the seller that needs the car gone this week is completely different from the seller who's happy to wait for 3 months. And buyers miss this constantly. Now, dealerships use psychology very differently. Private sellers negotiate emotionally, dealers negotiate structurally. Everything in a dealership is designed to make you focus on payments, not total cost. That's why sales staff immediately ask, what weekly budget are you trying to stay under? Because once buyers think in weekly payments, the actual vehicle price becomes blurry. A buyer fighting over $3,000 suddenly accepts it because it only changes the repayment slightly. That is intentional. And here's the dangerous part. Dealers know most buyers are terrified of awkwardness, so they create pressure through process. They'll disappear to speak to the manager, then leave you waiting. They make negotiations feel official and exhausting. The goal is very simple. They want to weigh you down emotionally until you just agree. And exhausted buyers overpay constantly. Another huge mistake buyers make is negotiating against themselves. This happens all the time. The seller wants $15,000. The buyer says, "Would you take 13,500?" The seller pauses, and before the seller even answers, the buyer says, "I could probably do 14,000. You just raised your own price for free." Good negotiators stop talking. Make the offer, then wait. Silence feels uncomfortable, and that is why it works. One of the most powerful negotiation tools is being willing to leave. Not pretending to leave, actually be willing to walk away. Because sellers can sense desperation instantly. The buyer who needs a car this weekend usually loses. The buyer who can calmly leave, that buyer becomes dangerous. And here's what most people don't realize. Walking away is often where the real negotiation starts, because sellers panic once the emotional pressure flips onto them. Now they start imagining the car sitting unsold. Now they start thinking about the rego costs, the finance payments, the tires, the storage space, the insurance. That is why so many sellers suddenly message later with, "Hey mate, what was your best offer again?" But there's another side to this. Some buyers negotiate so aggressively they accidentally become untrustworthy. If you insult the car, nitpick every tiny flaw, or act arrogant, the seller stops wanting to deal with you completely. And that matters more than people think, because sellers would often rather accept slightly less money from somebody easy to deal with than slightly more from someone painful. Negotiation isn't combat, it's controlled pressure. The best negotiators stay calm, respectful, quiet, measured, and collected. That's what creates trust, and trust lowers resistance. Now here's the part that most buyers completely misunderstand. The biggest negotiation advantage usually happens before you even arrive. Research. Because most people have no idea what the car is actually worth. And that is very dangerous. You need to know the common problems, the upcoming maintenance, the market pricing, ownership costs, weekly resale demand, known failures. Because once you understand the future cost of ownership, you stop negotiating emotionally. Now you're negotiating mathematically, and sellers can feel the difference immediately. A buyer who says, "These engines commonly need timing chain work around this mileage," sounds completely different from, "Can you do it cheaper?" One sounds informed, the other sounds hopeful. And sometimes the cheapest car becomes the most expensive negotiating mistake, because buyers get obsessed with winning the deal. I've seen buyers feel proud after negotiating a car with overheating issues, transmission problems, flood damage, accident repairs, neglected servicing. They saved money buying it and lost everything afterward. That's why the goal isn't how cheap can I get this car. The real goal is how little pain will this car cause me later. That's the difference between smart buyers and expensive mistakes. The best negotiators are not loud, they are informed. They stay calm, collected, they inspect properly, they control emotion, they understand pressure, and they know when to walk away. Because the second you emotionally need the car, the negotiation is already over.